Have you ever stopped to think about how the apps on your phone actually get there? How they go from just a random idea to this tool you use every single day? Well, it's not magic, that's for sure. It's a really structured journey. And in this explainer, we're going to break that exact process down.
So this is the main thing I want you to get from our time here. We're going to pull back the curtain on the whole process that turns a cool idea into actual working software. By the time we're done, you'll get the essential roadmap that basically every successful digital product follows.
So let's just start with that one big question. How does that little spark of an idea make its way through all the complicated tech stuff to become a polished, dependable app? It's a question that every single software team, from a tiny two-person startup to a huge tech giant, has to answer.
Because honestly, without a clear plan, the answer is it usually doesn't. You just end up with total chaos. We're talking missed deadlines, features full of bugs, and a final product that, well, nobody really wants. It's just a frantic, messy effort that's pretty much doomed from the start.
And this is the solution to that chaos. It's called the Software Development Lifecycle, or SDLC for short. I want you to think of it as the master blueprint, right? It's the structured roadmap that brings order to everything and guides a team from a fuzzy concept to a real working product. It's the framework that makes innovation actually possible.
So what does this journey actually look like? Well, the SDLC is broken down into a handful of core stages, and each one plays a super important role. Let's walk through them.
Okay, here they are, just at a glance. You've got planning, requirements, design, development, testing, deployment, and finally, maintenance. This is the whole path, from start to finish. And, as you're about to see, it often loops right back to the start again. That's why it's a life cycle.
So everything kicks off with planning. This is such a critical first step. It's where the team just hits pause to ask the really big, important questions. Before anyone even thinks about writing a single line of code, they have to figure out if the idea is even possible, and if it's worth doing in the first place.
This stage is all about asking those tough questions that prevent a total disaster later on. You know, is this idea actually valuable? Do we have the right people, the right budget? Can we get this done in a reasonable amount of time? Answering these questions gives the entire project its direction.
Okay, next up is stage 2, requirements. So once you know that you're building something, you have to define exactly what that something is. This is where the team gets super specific and translates that high-level idea into a really detailed list of specs.
And believe me, this isn't just a simple to-do list. It covers everything. What features the user is actually going to see and use, how the system needs to perform behind the scenes, any technical limits you have to work with, and what the user is hoping to accomplish. If this phase is weak, it's pretty much a recipe for failure later on.
So once the what is all figured out, we move on to the how. The design stage is kind of like an architect creating a super detailed blueprint for a skyscraper before a single construction worker shows up. It's all about planning the technical foundation of the entire software.
This is where the really big technical decisions get made. You know, how is the whole system going to be structured? What programming languages or databases are we going to use? How will all the different pieces of the puzzle talk to each other? Getting this design right is what guides the entire development effort.
And now we finally get to the part that everybody thinks of when they hear software development. This is the construction phase. Armed with all the plans and blueprints from the earlier stages, the developers can finally start writing the code that actually brings the application to life.
But just because the code is written doesn't mean it's ready. Not even close. Stage 5, testing, is this absolutely vital quality control step. The software gets put through its paces to hunt down any bugs, to make sure it meets all the requirements, and, most importantly, to ensure it gives the user a smooth experience.
All right, this is the exciting moment, deployment. This is when the software is finally released from the internal servers and goes live, out into the real world. It's that amazing transition point where all that planning and building becomes real-world value that people can actually use.
But the journey is never really over, even after launch. Software is basically a living thing. The maintenance stage is all about fixing any new bugs that pop up, releasing updates for new operating systems, and making little improvements based on what users are telling you.
And that right there, that's why we call it a life cycle. See, when it's time to add a big new feature, what happens? The process starts all over again. You go right back to planning, requirements, and design. It's this continuous loop of improvement.
So, after going through all those stages, what's the big takeaway here? What's the main point? Well, it's a pretty simple but really powerful shift in how you look at things.
There's this common myth out there that building software is all about the coding. But the reality, as this whole life cycle shows us, is that coding is just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. Real success is about the coordinated effort across all these stages: the planning, the communication, the design, and the testing.
So why does all this structure actually matter? Well, because it works. Following a process like the SDLC helps teams make fewer costly mistakes, it helps them work together way more effectively, and ultimately, it helps them deliver high-quality, reliable products that people can actually depend on. It creates a repeatable path to success.
And that really brings us to the final, most important point. An idea, it doesn't matter how brilliant it is really just a thought. It only becomes truly valuable when it's turned into something real that solves a problem for somebody. The SDLC, that's the bridge that gets you from a great idea to a great product. It's how ideas are truly brought to life.